coffee, and about 12 hours of near-death sleep. That's my only wish, I mumbled, my grip tightening on the steering wheel, still cool from the drive as I finally reached my street. 42 hours straight, fueled by stale energy bars and the residual buzz from a botched operation in Switzerland. Something about dried pasta as a code conduit, don't even ask, had left me feeling completely drained. The Swiss Alps were certainly picturesque, but shivering in the cold while evading unsavory characters tends to dampen any aesthetic appreciation. All I craved was my familiar bed, a proper shower, a return to my regulated existence. But as I pulled into my driveway, a prickle of unease, the first hint of trouble, washed over me. Something was amiss. The landscaping, typically immaculately kept, I'd paid a premium for that fussy garden boutique vibe, looked neglected, far wilder than it should have been. After a fortnight away, there was no overflowing mailbox, no newspaper lay on the doorstep. Then my gaze fell upon the welcome mat. My usual one, featuring a witty retort about warrants, had vanished, replaced by a stiff, corporate-looking affair that declared, "Welcome. Harmony begins at the threshold." My heart skipped a beat. Perhaps it was just Karen being Karen, I reasoned. Yet a fleeting movement glimpsed in a neighbor's window, a curtain drawn back and then swiftly falling, sent a shiver down my spine, a lingering echo of my recent mission. Paranoia, Alex, get a handle on it. The true shock, however, awaited me at my front door. My key slid into the lock, but stubbornly refused to turn. I tried again, inverting it, to no avail. The back door presented the same resistance. The garage keypad remained stubbornly inert. Sleep deprivation was clearly making me clumsy, perhaps. Then I saw it, emblazoned ostentatiously on the unfamiliar deadbolt. A garish neon orange sticker, its edge peeling slightly. Access denied by HOA Security Authority. Property temporarily impounded under Article 12C of the Community Covenant. Contact HOA Authority for reinstatement. Impounded. My sluggish brain instantly shifted to a state of high alert. I scanned my surroundings. The street was deserted. No witnesses. Excellent. I stooped down, dislodged a piece of bark from my boot sole, and retrieved the bent hairpin I always kept concealed there for just such emergencies. Nearby, I found a sturdy twig amongst the rose bushes. 15 seconds. That's all it took. The satisfying click echoed far louder than it should have. As the door creaked open, a shrill shriek shattered the quiet. "You absolutely cannot do that. That's a clear violation." Karen stood on her lawn across the street, hands planted firmly on her hips, radiating righteous indignation. Her jaw hung slack as I merely met her gaze, then stepped inside. "Forget the shower for now." I dropped my duffel bag, still faintly redolent of jet fuel and regret, and marched straight back out, making my way towards the glorified shed they dignified with the title of HOA office. The automated hotline predictably routed me to voicemail. Karen was there, behind a faux wood desk, nursing a mug and declaring, "I'm not bossy, I'm assertive." She didn't even flinch. She simply offered a tight, smug smile that failed to reach her eyes, a smile that felt practiced. "Oh, Alex, back so soon?" Her voice, reedy and condescending, dripped with disdain. "We noted your extended absence. Your neighbors expressed some concerns. Unusual vehicles, irregular hours. A decision was made. You've been classified as a security risk adjacent individual." Security risk adjacent. Are these even genuine regulations, Karen? "They are now," she sniffed, sliding a laminated document across the desk. My alleged infractions included lawn texture inconsistencies with the neighborhood aesthetic, excessive garage fortification, and a notable lack of visible seasonal festive spirit. It was utterly preposterous. Then came the final indignity, a temporary visitor's permit for my own residence, valid for 72 hours. I offered no argument, no protest. I simply accepted the pass, turned, and departed. The gears were already turning behind my exhaustion. Karen lacked the intelligence or the audacity to orchestrate such a maneuver independently, especially not by changing the locks on a property I owned outright. Someone else was involved. Someone had coached her. And the timing, immediately upon my return? No, this was far beyond a dispute over overzealous landscaping. This was something else entirely. My quiet suburban street suddenly felt considerably less secure, my hand clutching the ludicrous laminated visitor pass. My key to my own damn house for the next 3 days. I walked back down the aggressively sculpted pathway where Karen had once attempted to enlist security for risk-adjacent grass texture violations. The sheer absurdity served as a diversion. Karen wasn't the mastermind. She was merely a poorly rehearsed performer. Her smugness, the pre-prepared list of violations, the timing, it all reeked of a larger scheme. Someone else was pulling the strings, someone who wanted me locked out, possibly under surveillance, immediately after returning from a mission that hadn't exactly concluded cleanly. That pasta courier incident felt like an eternity ago, but the paranoia it had instilled was as potent as ever. This wasn't merely HOA overreach. It felt personal, professional. A shower and sleep were now off the agenda. It was time for the initial step of any proper reconnaissance, walking the dog. The only issue was I didn't own a dog. It didn't matter. In neighborhoods like this, a man walking with deliberate purpose while holding an empty leash is typically ignored, overlooked, or occasionally the target of a prank. Perfect cover for observation. I retrieved an old leash from the garage, looped my thumb through it, and began my patrol, adopting the vacant expression of someone contemplating canine digestive habits. The sensation of being observed intensified almost immediately, not overtly, but a distinct presence. A delivery truck lingered a little too long at the curb. Curtains twitched. A jogger rounded the corner, earbuds seemingly engaged, but his eyes scanned with a methodical intensity, lingering on my house, then on me, as I deliberately paused, feigning a deep interest in Biscuits, my imaginary dog's fascination with a particularly stubborn patch of crabgrass. The jogger faltered for a fraction of a second, his stride momentarily broken before he resumed his pace. Not definitive proof, but another crucial data point for the "something is seriously wrong" column. Then I spotted it. Parked 2 streets over, partially concealed by an ancient oak tree, was a white van. Generic, nondescript, except for the 5 mismatched antennas protruding from its roof like metallic weeds, and the faint outline on the side panel where a thermal imaging sticker had clearly been removed. Definitely not Gary's pest control service. As I slowed, angling for a clearer view, the side door slid open a mere crack. I caught a fleeting glimpse of a man inside, sporting a professional-grade communication headset. He registered me, clocking him. No hesitation. The engine roared to life. The van pulled away smoothly. No logo, no contact information. I swiftly captured a photograph with my phone. Predictably, the license plate was obscured by a strategically placed smudge. Later, the barcode I managed to document on the rear panel returned an invalid result. Surveillance, blatant, and sophisticated if you knew what to look for. Back home, nursing a lukewarm coffee I didn't quite trust, I produced my handheld signal detector. A routine sweep, the usual Wi-Fi signatures, ambient Bluetooth interference. Then, bingo, a low-frequency pulsed signal, military-grade, pinging with a steady rhythm. Too clean, too directional for standard network traffic. I triangulated its source. It led directly across the street, terminating at the decorative birdhouse perched atop Karen's flagpole. A birdhouse apparently wired as a signals intelligence outpost. This operation extended far beyond the purview of the HOA. It was time to contact Miles. Miles resided 3 doors down in a dwelling that appeared perpetually on the brink of structural collapse, held together, I suspected, by sheer willpower and tenacious ivy. However, within its walls resided a digital stronghold, the domain of an ex-Navy cryptanalyst turned semi-retired hacker. Miles owed me a favor from a rather messy entanglement involving offshore servers and some ill-advised wagers in Macau. I found him hunched over his keyboard, illuminated by the glow of 6 monitors displaying cascading lines of code. "Trouble, Alex?" he inquired without looking up, his fingers a blur. You could say that. Picked up a peculiar signal. Needs a second pair of eyes. Pulsed, encrypted military band. Seems to be broadcasting from Karen's birdhouse. Miles finally turned, one eyebrow arching. Karen, the neighborhood tyrant of lawn ornaments. Probably some Cold War surplus junk she snagged online. A directional antenna points directly at my house, I countered, and there was a van. I quickly recounted the details of my observation. He leaned back, stroking his beard thoughtfully. All right, that's a bit more intriguing. Give me the frequency. As he worked, accessing network analyzers I was fairly certain weren't available on the commercial market, his usual cynical commentary began to fade. He frowned. Hold on. This is beyond amateur hour. Clean signal, tight beam, and it's routing data packets through a peculiar relay. Hang on a second. His fingers flew across the keys. A new window materialized on his primary screen. Alex, someone just attempted a brute force intrusion on my secure gateway immediately after I pinged that birdhouse relay. My blood ran cold. They weren't merely observing, they were actively responding. Can you handle it? Yeah. Firewall held. Routed the attack vector to a honeypot in Vladivostok, but they know someone's probing now. This just got interesting. What's the next move? The next move is we investigate the HOA nerve center tonight, midnight. The HOA office complex, a humble unit within a strip mall, lay cloaked in darkness. Miles had remotely disabled the primary security feed loop. The rear entrance boasted a formidable magnetic lock, corporate grade. Got a credit card you don't mind sacrificing? Miles inquired over our encrypted comms link. I handed him my expired Blockbuster card. 20 seconds of expert manipulation later, and we slipped inside. The main office exuded the scent of cheap air freshener and pervasive anxiety. Walls adorned with laminated regulations, but the true prize was a locked door labeled HOA compliant storage, staff only. Miles made short work of the keypad with a signal decoder. We stepped inside, and my breath hitched. This wasn't storage. It was a miniature NSA surveillance hub. Racks of servers hummed softly. Monitors displayed live feeds from concealed cameras focused on multiple residences, including my own. Filing cabinets contained meticulously printed surveillance logs, timestamps of residents departing for work, package deliveries, notes on suspicious gatherings, likely backyard barbecues. USB drives were clearly labeled with street names. Then I discovered a folder bearing my name, not Alex, but my public-facing alias, my agency designation, a name known only to a select few. Karen couldn't have orchestrated this level of access internally. Photographs of me over the years, leaving my residence in various disguises. GPS timestamps from my vehicle, license plate numbers, chillingly precise. Similar, albeit thinner, files existed for 3 other residents, individuals I vaguely recognized, all possessing past or present federal employment histories. Metadata tags embedded within the digital files linked this server to identical installations in HOA communities situated near Washington, D.C. and San Diego. This operation was far from localized. On a nearby tablet, a chat window had been recently closed. Miles, working his magic remotely, managed to recover the deleted log from the server cache. Pseudonym handle, Sable Eagle. The final message transmitted read, "Target remains oblivious, local operative compliant, proceeding as planned, interference will be neutralized as required." Another message log indicated a dramatic surge in communication frequency approximately 48 hours prior to my return from Switzerland, precisely coinciding with the conclusion of my mission. "Puppet," I whispered. That's all Karen was. Someone was exploiting her fixation, leveraging the entire HOA as a shell corporation to conduct a sophisticated surveillance operation targeting current and former intelligence personnel. And the timing was no coincidence. It felt directly linked to whatever quagmire I had just extricated myself from in the Alps. "Miles," I murmured into the comms, initiating the download of all accessible data onto an encrypted drive. "This isn't about HOA regulations. They're hunting us." Back within the relative and likely temporary sanctuary of my own home, the adrenaline from the HOA office infiltration slowly receded, replaced by a cold, calculated fury. Miles's voice crackled over our secure comms link, his earlier skepticism entirely dissipated. 32 active devices, Alex. 32 birdhouses, sprinkler controllers, fake rocks, even a couple of those tacky garden gnomes. All routing data through Karen's server, then bouncing off that peculiar relay we identified. This isn't just your street. It's at least a 10-block radius, possibly more. And based on those metadata tags, this playbook has been implemented elsewhere. My agency designation appearing in their files, the connection to other federal personnel, the timing, it all pointed back to my Swiss assignment. The picture was becoming terrifyingly clear. Karen wasn't merely a pawn, she was the local franchise manager for a private intelligence network specializing in the surveillance of individuals like myself, likely operating under the guise of community safety. And Sable Eagle, whoever they were, was orchestrating the entire operation. They weren't just watching, they were actively pursuing. "All right," I stated, pacing my living room, scanning the corners out of ingrained habit. "Phase 1 was intelligence gathering. Phase 2 begins now. Time to stir the pot." "Let's call it Operation Suburban Showdown," Miles chuckled darkly. "Catchy. What's the plan?" "Full scorched earth. Not yet. That comes later. First we play the fool. We subtly disrupt their network. We make Karen sweat. We force Sable Eagle to overreact. Reveal their hand." The impending HOA community cookout presented the ideal opportunity. I arrived sporting my most flamboyant Hawaiian shirt, a tub of store-bought potato salad in hand, and a disarmingly goofy grin. I regaled anyone within earshot with fabricated tales of my adventures off-grid in Montana, communing with nature, and penning a truly dreadful novel about sentient tree spirits. The sheer absurdity caused Karen to visibly flinch when she arrived, clipboard in hand, her smile plastered on so tightly it appeared agonizing. She made a grand show of welcoming me back, complimenting my charming red, regulation-violating lawn ornaments. Then she presented me with a freshly printed letter detailing a new community security initiative. Voluntary in-home compliance checks to ensure household safety standards. Voluntary checks? I feigned impressed admiration. "Wow, Karen, that sounds incredibly thorough. Did you conceive of this yourself, or is it part of a broader program?" She hesitated for a moment. "We received assistance from a consulting group," she admitted, a slight tremor in her voice. "Experts in modern oversight methodologies." "Fascinating. What's their name? I'd love to read up on their work." "Ah, it's confidential." She deflected swiftly. "For security reasons, of course." Bingo. She had no inkling of who she was actually collaborating with. That ignorance was my leverage. I spent the following days subtly disseminating misinformation into the suspected listening devices. I spoke loudly on the phone about fictional job offers in Alaska, discussed non-existent security system upgrades with Miles over an open channel we knew they monitored, let them chase phantoms. Then came the disruption. Employing a custom signal scrambler Miles had hastily assembled, I took leisurely strolls past every known surveillance point. The gnomes, the fake rocks, the lampposts, broadcasting a looped image of an empty street or a serenely waving squirrel. Their monitors would display nothing amiss, while their actual vision was rendered blind. Next, I infiltrated the HOA's prized drone via a known backdoor in its firmware. Instead of its designated patrol route, it spent an afternoon obsessively shadowing Karen's vehicle like an overly enthusiastic, buzzing puppy hovering just outside her driver's side window. Reports of her frantic swerving and panicked calls flooded the neighborhood Facebook group. The pièce de resistance arrived during the HOA's weekly yard standards inspection. Timing a remote command with perfect precision, I triggered every smart sprinkler system on the block simultaneously, just as Karen and her inspection committee rounded the corner. She slipped on a suddenly saturated patch of pavement and landed squarely amidst Mrs. Henderson's award-winning collection of ceramic garden gnomes. Someone captured the glorious, flailing spectacle on video. By dinner, it had gone viral on TikTok, captioned, "Ha Karen versus the Gnome Rebellion." Their retaliation was predictable, but escalating. The morning after the sprinkler incident, my car refused to start. Dead. Not a battery issue. The ignition had been expertly tampered with. A quick call to Miles. A few frantic minutes of him remotely diagnosing and bypassing the fried circuit via the car's OBD2 port. And I was mobile again. But the message was clear. They were done playing passively. Saturday arrived. The day of my meticulously planned, fully HOA-compliant backyard barbecue. Permits filed, decibel levels pre-approved, decorations rigorously adhering to Rule 7, subsection B, pastel colors only. As neighbors gathered, cautiously enjoying ribs and lemonade in the suddenly liberated atmosphere, I made a show of thanking Karen, who had arrived late, looking pale and furious for her unwavering dedication to community safety. And in honor of that dedication, I announced, pulling down a projector screen I'd set up earlier, "Let's review our neighborhood's impressive surveillance upgrades." Panic flashed across Karen's face. The footage I played was carefully sanitized. Clips of the hidden devices Miles and I had mapped. Anonymized timestamps from innocent homes showing unusual data uploads. A graph illustrating data exports to servers registered overseas. I never mentioned spies or Sable Eagle. I simply presented the facts and let the murmuring crowd connect the dots. Halfway through, Karen snapped. She made a desperate dash towards my house's main breaker box on the sidewall. I smirked inwardly. She flipped the main switch with a loud clang. Nothing happened. The projector, lights, and music continued playing, powered by the backup generator I'd secretly wired in. Someone in the crowd snickered. Someone else loudly offered Karen a hot dog. She shrieked something incoherent about traitors and stormed off, nearly tripping over a pink flamingo. Within the hour, footage of the entire event, including the failed power cut, hit Reddit. HOA Karen tries to cancel. BBQ gets burned instead. Later that night, the real confirmation arrived. Reviewing my own secure router logs, I found traces of an active, extremely sophisticated connection attempt trying to breach my VPN tunnel. Not local. This one had bounced off a satellite uplink. They knew I knew. Sable Eagle, or whoever Bishop was working for, had stepped out of the shadows. Miles and I analyzed everything. The new hack attempt, the BBQ footage, the server data. One pattern jumped out. The unmarked white van. It had shown up near my house at precise 12-hour intervals for the past week. Always parking 3 houses down. Always staying for exactly 43 minutes. Too regular for surveillance. It felt like extraction, data retrieval, personnel swap. Miles ran a thermal filter on the latest footage. 2 figures emerged from the house carrying a heavy hard case and what looked like a disguised antenna array. Standard tactical gear, non-standard suburban behavior. The house belonged to a retired postal worker and her cat, unless the cat was running a numbers racket. Someone had installed a listening post or data hub right under our noses. Running the van's partial description against some of Miles's shadier database access points yielded a chilling hit. A similar vehicle had been flagged near the last known residence of David Chen, a former agency colleague who'd vanished without a trace a year prior after working on sensitive counterintelligence cases. This wasn't just surveillance. This network might be cleaning up loose ends. Then came the final sickening discovery. Buried deep in the HOA server's image cache, mislabeled as Property Line Dispute Ref. B was a photograph taken inside my living room, date-stamped the night before I returned from Switzerland, before the locks were changed. The timestamp matched to the minute the secure notification I'd received that the pasta courier target in my Swiss operation had been apprehended and had gone silent. It all clicked into place with horrifying clarity. The mission, the courier getting caught, the network is activating. The break-in while I was gone, not just to watch, but likely to search for something related to the mission, or worse, to plant something. The lockout wasn't Karen's petty revenge. The Sable Eagle operation was a meticulously planned maneuver to provide a distraction, restrict entry, and deploy their operative while they conducted their business within my residence. My home had been compromised with hidden listening devices. The situation had fundamentally shifted. They believed they were tightening their grip. They were unaware that I was preparing to spring my own countermeasure. The realization struck me with the force of a physical blow. They had infiltrated my property, The lockout wasn't merely a punitive action, it served as an operational cover. While Karen assumed the role of a petty tyrant at my front door, Sable Eagle's agents had likely conducted a thorough sweep of my house, searching for any repercussions from the Swiss assignment and installing sophisticated surveillance equipment that remained undetected. They perceived themselves as being several steps ahead, orchestrating events from the shadows. It was time to expose them, using their own clandestine activities as the bait. Miles initially expressed reservations about the direct confrontation I had in mind. "Risky, Alex. These individuals operate ruthlessly. Remember my firewall." "Precisely," I countered through our secure communication channels. "They respond predictably under pressure. We must compel them to reveal themselves, draw out someone with higher authority than Karen, and expose this network so publicly that they cannot simply dismiss it." The resolution was immediate. The strategy was straightforward. Exploit Karen's inherent weaknesses, her arrogance and paranoia. I acquired a robust black Pelican case, standard military-grade equipment. Across the top, I affixed a prominent yellow sticker, "Classified Asset Disposal, Authorized Eyes Only." Inside, I placed the carefully selected evidence. I included a seemingly official, yet entirely fabricated, authorization document backdated 2 weeks prior to the lockout. This document empowered Community Coordinator Kay Peterson to oversee sensitive data collection for a private intelligence contractor named Aegis Analytics, a defunct organization previously linked to Bishop years ago. The packet also contained fabricated encrypted communication logs between Karen and a map detailing fictitious, high-priority surveillance zones throughout the neighborhood. This collection of fabricated items was sufficient to appear legitimate, incriminating, and profoundly alarming to anyone realizing they were in over their depth. I positioned the case conspicuously near my front entrance with a slight scuff to suggest recent delivery. A miniature camera, concealed within a bird feeder across the street, transmitted a live feed through 3 virtual private network tunnels to Miles and me. Subsequently, I drove a nondescript rental plumbing van around the corner and awaited their move. It took less than 2 hours. Karen approached my driveway with an air of self-importance tinged with apprehension, her clipboard conspicuously absent. She surveyed her surroundings with the subtlety of a cinematic villain, then bent over the case. She tapped it and, donning a pair of pristine white gloves produced from her handbag, began to work the latches. The instant the second latch clicked open, a silent notification appeared on my phone. The bait had been taken. I observed her eyes scanning the documents, her face visibly paling. She swiftly stowed the entire packet into her oversized purse and proceeded purposefully back towards the HOA office. Phase 2 was initiated. I immediately activated the internal camera feed from the server room we had previously accessed. Within 5 minutes, Karen appeared on screen, frantically sifting through files, then making a call, her voice escalating into a panicked shriek that I could almost perceive through the silent feed. Then he entered. A man in a dark suit with expensive shoes and cold eyes. Bishop, precisely as depicted in grainy file photographs from his CIA tenure before his burnout and subsequent intelligence dealings. He appeared utterly composed as Karen thrust the fabricated documents at him. Without even glancing at them, he took the packet, fed it into a heavy-duty shredder beside the dormant servers, and met her gaze directly. I zoomed in, clearly reading his lips. "If you talk, you vanish." Karen visibly wilted, the last vestiges of her authority dissolving into sheer terror. She was not merely a pawn, she was expendable. As Bishop exited the HOA office and proceeded towards a sleek, anonymous sedan parked nearby, I engaged the plumbing van's engine. In the parking lot, I forced him to brake abruptly, the tires emitting a faint squeal. Our eyes met through his windshield for a brief moment. No words were exchanged, only a stark, cold recognition. He perceived a professional adversary. I saw a traitor who had underestimated his target. A flicker of surprise, perhaps annoyance, crossed his face before he wrenched the steering wheel and sped away. That evening, the real operation commenced. Miles and I meticulously compiled the evidence, the server data, the surveillance maps, screenshots of Sable Eagle communications, photographic evidence of the hidden devices, and the pièce de résistance, the crystal-clear video of Bishop threatening Karen in the HOA office. We packaged this into 3 encrypted bundles. Miles, employing his expertise in digital obfuscation, simultaneously transmitted them to our contacts. The investigative reporter for the local news, the independent journalist renowned for exposing corruption, and my federal contact, who was indebted to me from the Belarus incident. Following this, Miles initiated a comprehensive digital cleanup, meticulously erasing our presence. Sent and scrubbed, he confirmed, his tone conveying exhaustion yet satisfaction. Let's see who takes the bait first. The following morning, amidst the gathering digital storm, I conducted the previously announced community seminar at the clubhouse titled Basic Lockpicking: How to Protect What's Yours. 15 curious, somewhat bewildered, and slightly apprehensive residents attended, along with 2 men in ill-fitting golf shirts who were undoubtedly observers. Their presence did not concern me. I instructed them on pin tumblers and wafer locks, subtly weaving in metaphors about safeguarding one's access, the distinction between rules and genuine control, and how the true threats often arrive with a clipboard and sensible footwear. Midway through the session, Karen entered, appearing spectral. She sat at the rear, silent, her gaze fixed on her hands. As I concluded by thanking everyone, I made eye contact with her. "Always question authority," I stated, even when it seems perfectly reasonable. She flinched but did not look up. The repercussions were swift. By evening, the first news report broke, citing leaked documents and video evidence. Headlines blared, "Suburban spy ring exposed, HOA used for covert surveillance, former CIA agent linked to neighborhood watch scheme." Residents began dismantling birdhouses and garden gnomes. An emergency petition to dissolve the HOA board garnered hundreds of signatures overnight. Karen's residence went dark. 2 days later, a moving truck cleared her belongings before dawn. She had vanished. Bishop was publicly identified. Subsequent reports indicated he was being sought for federal questioning before news outlets quietly reported his disappearance. The HOA's legal counsel issued a flustered denial before resigning as lawsuits, fueled by the leaked evidence of illegal fines and surveillance, began to accumulate. Miles confirmed the security of his systems, although the distributed denial of service attack had necessitated the migration of critical hardware. "Worth it," he grunted over the comms, noting the priceless impact of the network map appearing in the news. The network was fractured, exposed. Karen was gone. Bishop was either on the run or worse. Checkmate, I hoped. In the weeks following the implosion of Karen's suburban spy ring, an uneasy quiet settled over the neighborhood, the kind that follows the abatement of a fever. The disgraced HOA board officially disbanded during a poorly attended emergency meeting held in a borrowed church basement. Conversations resumed, mailboxes were repaired without fear of citation, and residents even began planting outrageously colored lawn flamingos with defiant pride. Someone launched an online merchandise campaign selling t-shirts emblazoned with "Unlock Your Rights," featuring a crossed twig and hairpin. I purchased 3. The notorious birdhouse cameras vanished overnight. The neighborhood collectively exhaled, scarred, but liberated. My own situation was more complex. There were calls, of course, polite yet pointed inquiries from men in discreet suits utilizing secure lines, questioning how I had uncovered so much information so rapidly. I adhered to the sanitized narrative. I was threatened on my own property, and I retaliated in kind. Most accepted this explanation. Professionals respect the defense of one's home turf. However, the probing questions regarding how a local HOA network gained access to my agency designation lingered uncomfortably. This information was not publicly accessible. The implication was palpable. The corruption might not have been confined solely to Bishop and his private network. There could be a leak much closer to home, another threat to monitor. One rainy afternoon, amidst my newly delivered and thoroughly screened mail, I discovered an anomaly. A thick, cream-colored envelope addressed by hand and sealed with old-fashioned wax. There was no return address. Inside, a single sheet of heavy paper bore a simple typed message. "You weren't the only one they were watching. You reminded us to watch back." No name, no signature. This confirmed that the network's reach and its potential targets had indeed extended beyond our immediate cul-de-sac. I incinerated the letter, but the message remained etched in my mind. The house required a final, thorough cleansing. This time, armed with the knowledge of what I might find, I discovered them. 3 sophisticated listening devices I had overlooked during my initial sweep. One was concealed within a light switch, another was tucked behind the refrigerator compressor, both cleverly shielded and drawing minimal power. A third, a high-frequency transmitter, was embedded in the attic insulation, likely installed during the pre-lockout intrusion. They were now deactivated, presumably remotely, once the network's exposure was confirmed, but their discovery served as grim validation. Karen had not installed those. She had merely opened the door for the principal actors. My new security system far surpassed HOA compliance requirements. Biometric locks secured every entry point, layered offline backups were implemented, and zero cloud storage or remote access was utilized. If you weren't me, you weren't getting in. I added a decoy safe filled with Monopoly money, programmed my smart assistant to occasionally recite ominous Russian proverbs at random intervals, and replaced the welcome mat. The new one simply read, "Try me." Then came the final twist. A moving truck pulled up to Karen's vacant house, unloading boxes marked Go-V. Among the items was training equipment and a woman whose clearance was verified. I recognized her instantly. Sarah, one of my more promising trainees from Langley several years prior, recently transferred from an internal rotation. She saw me observing from my porch and offered a bright, professional smile. "Heard the neighborhood was quiet now, Alex," she called out. "Quiet?" I echoed, walking towards her, my mind racing. Coincidence, or was Langley planting a friendly face nearby? Relatively speaking, of course. I assisted her and her husband, a quiet man with observant eyes, in carrying an expected box. He chuckled when I briefly recounted the HOA saga. "Seriously?" "She tried to evict a CIA lockpicking instructor by changing the locks." He shook his head. "Bold move." "Bold," I agreed. "And colossally foolish." Later that evening, sitting on my porch, the air finally free of Karen's oppressive presence and carrying a faint scent of normalcy, I felt a semblance of control return. Not absolute peace, I now understood that well, but the earned control that comes from constant vigilance. Just for amusement, I accessed the feed from the microcamera I had discreetly left aimed at the now empty server room in the old HOA office. Dust motes danced in the darkness. For now, because around here, locks aren't what keep things safe. People do. And this time, I thought, observing the quiet street where Sarah's lights now glowed warmly,